On the way to follow-up doctor appointment for my left shoulder. This is September 12th, 2013. And I had that surgery on July 16th on my left shoulder, so I'm going to get that done. Anyways. I was born on July 5th, 1962. 1962. Nobody had walked on the moon yet. Obviously, there was no computers. None of that stuff came out till much later. When I was an adult, actually. But 1962. It's only not that long after World War II when you think about it. Now that I'm older, I realize how close it really was. But in 1962, in the 60s in general, the country was in a turmoil because we were...
8.7 miles, keep right towards I-395 north.
We were really just getting going in Vietnam at the very beginnings of it, and that war was going to be a war that would rage on through my childhood for 10 years, at least the first 10 years, and ushered in the hippie movement and the whole free sex and drugs and rock and roll and all that shit. But anyways, I was born in Glendale, California. Glendale. And my mother was living on Perlita Street. That's all I really know. Of course, I don't remember that time. I have no memories at all of living on Perlita Street. But as you know, I was the youngest of four. So I had my three older sisters, Sandy, Cindy, and Shelley. Of course, Cindy was the oldest. And then there was Shelley, and then Sandy, and then me. So, you know, my dad, by the time you guys ever decide to watch this, my dad's book will be out, and you can read about him and see what he was doing during those times, or you can read his articles that are on the internet now. But of course, my mom and dad were not married; they never were. So I am truly a bastard by the definition of the word. But you know, they had their own thing, and I have no memories whatsoever of my dad ever being in my life at all as a very young child. You know, later on when I was, you know, in school and, you know, elementary school and such, there are some vague memories of seeing him, but I don't have any clear memories of him being involved. I have no memories of him living in my home. So, you got one boy and three girls. And all I know from those days are that, you know, my mom was pretty wild. I mean, she was a tall, sexy, red-headed lady. And like I said, the 60s were on like Donkey Kong. I mean, it was raging. And she met my dad this is things I've subsequently found out, that she met my dad in a club while he was playing, I believe he was playing saxophone. And her and her girlfriends had gone out to this club, and that's how they met. I bet there's some wild stories there, because my mom is a wild old lady now. I can imagine. Let me adjust this so you can see my double or triple chins. I can only imagine the shit that was going on in those days. But with the drugs and the fucking sex and everything, who knows? She was a partier. Now, before I get into bad mouthing my mom, I do, for whatever it's worth, I'll just give this caveat that her mother was another red-headed nightmare, apparently. I mean, this is just things I've heard from reliable sources, that her mom was a wild one. I mean, her mom was a hardcore drinker, alcoholic, who physically abused her. You know, my grandpa came home once, and his wife, my grandma, was beating my mom with a 2x4. I mean, and apparently she was I can't swear on this, but the word is that she was banging everybody in the fucking neighborhood while her husband was out and fighting World War II in the Navy. Very typical of that era. So yeah, she comes from a hard drinking family and some abuse, and she certainly didn't have any lessons on child rearing. Be that as it may, she ended up pumping 4 kids into the world, and I'm one of them. When I was born, the family rumor is that there was actually that I'm a twin, that there was a dead one born as well. I grew up hearing that, and then I think my mom told me that it was not fully developed, blah, blah, blah. But I was born a blue baby, that's what they called at the time, which meant I was not breathing. And as you know, without oxygen after a certain amount of time, you end up with brain damage. So that has always been my excuse for not being able to solve math problems. And I may even lean on that as an excuse for other things. We'll see. Just kidding. But yeah, that just meant that I wasn't breathing because my lungs were completely full of fluid. And apparently the guy that was delivering me didn't know what he was doing. He was kind of a new guy, and he freaked out, and the nurse ran and got some old dude who ran in, doctors, and he suctioned out all the spooge from my lungs, and apparently I was blue. That's why they call them blue babies. And everybody's got a horror story at birth, and that was mine. So thank God the dude did that, or you guys wouldn't be watching this video. So thank you, whoever you are, who's probably not alive anymore. My earliest childhood memories begin at the address of 3726 West 104th Street in Inglewood, California. They're not good memories for me. I honestly don't. I mean, when I say that I don't have good memories, I can tell. Let me put it to you this way: I have very few memories of my childhood. Now, ones I have are crystal clear, but they're so scattered. You know, if I had to list my memories of 104th, and I will, I'll just list them. My memories are, and this is not in chronological order, but my memories are the high school in the area. There was a junior high called Monroe, M-O-N-R-O-E, Monroe Junior High, and the girls went to that school. And then the high school was called Morningside, and that was when Inglewood was turning from white to black, and it was pretty fast. I mean, it was coming from the east, like a shadow, but really it was. I mean, the black neighborhoods were coming in, and the whites were moving out. It was called white flight. When blacks would move in, the people next door would move out. Blacks would move in, and it really was. It became like a wave that just took over South Central LA, and gosh, the projects in Watts, not to digress, but those used to be, beautiful neighborhoods during World War II. And now they are like, downtown Afghanistan. So, the school that I actually went to for kindergarten was called Center Park. And that was in Inglewood, California. I don't remember where it was. I think it was off of Doty, but I'm D-O-T-Y Street. Pretty sure it was, but I don't remember. And I lived on 104th. I don't know when we moved there, but I lived there until, I guess I was probably 7. Come on in heavy traffic here. And so the memories I have of that period of of my life are for again, out of order. Shelly was very constantly fighting. She was in a lot. I mean, the girl fought her way to school, fought at school, and fought her way home from school. For whatever reason, and I don't know, she was a very tall, lanky girl, and she was very abused by my mom, physically and of course verbally, and so she had all of that to contend with. And she would come home with her hair pulled out and black eyes, clothes ripped.
In 0.5 miles, take exit 7B on right to Virginia, 120 north.
Let me see where I'm at here. Hang on. Exit 7B, that's 7A. And Cindy would defend her sometimes. Cindy comes and goes in my memories there. The ones, like I said, the ones I have are good ones.
Take exit 7B on right to
But for
Virginia,
example, I remember,
120 north.
hang on a second, let me negotiate this exit. I'll edit all this shit out, so don't worry. I'll edit it out, I promise. Coffee spill. I don't even know if the camera's rolling. How funny is that? I have 7.5 miles.
Continue 3.4 miles on Virginia, 120 north.
I remember one time there was a girl in the neighborhood, and her name was Maxine, and she was like a really butch, dykey girl. Of course, these people all looked very old to me at the time, but when I look back on it, they were just teenagers. But she was like really a full-on bull dyke, and she rained havoc down on my sisters. She beat the crap out of Cindy one time. I mean, this was like a daily thing. If she caught my sisters outside, she would wail on them. I don't know why. I don't know what started that. But one day she beat the crap out of Cindy, and Shelly came home from school and heard about it. And I'll never forget, clearly see it. Shelly left the house, jumped over a brick wall that was a shortcut to Maxine's house, who lived down the street on 104th. And all I know is when Shelly came back, she had blood on her knuckles and a look of death in her eye. She defended her sister. Maxine never fucked with Cindy again, man. Shelly beat the living crap out of that girl, and I mean, it was full-blown Mortal Kombat. So, that was going on. Cindy, at some point, now I do remember with Cindy when Cindy was in the house, we used to have over there, I'm gonna have to Google this and see what the cause was, but maybe once a year we would have these horrendous floods in the neighborhood. And when I say floods, I mean, I'm talking it would rain and the water, I have no mount for my camera, so I'm just kind of sitting it on this armrest. The water would come into the house and slowly rise, and all of us remember, Shelly and I still talk about this. In the middle of the night, my mom, drunk and stoned on drugs, running around and screaming as they try to lift boxes and things up off the floor. I remember just very vividly being sat on the bathroom sink, and everybody in the house saying, "Oh my God, when the water reaches the light sockets, we're all going to get electrocuted." These are these are girls. So of course, as a little kid, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, "My God, we're all going to die." And I watched that water, and I watched it, and of course, it hit the light sockets, and the little wall sockets, and it shorted out the power, but no, we didn't all die. A girl walking across the street during one of those floods, the manhole cover had floated off and she fell in, not all the way, but she broke her leg very bad. I remember that. And every year the fire department would, when they would come to the area there, And I remember one time there was a wall behind our house, a brick wall, and they knocked the holes in the wall to let the water drain out of our neighborhood. I mean, it wasn't just our house; it was every house there was flooded. I mean, you know, with 3 or 4 feet of water, it was crazy. You know, so the next day, everybody in the neighborhood would have all of their furniture and their crap out in the yard. Rugs would be torn up and they'd be rotten and moldy and, you know, starting to mold and just terrible damage. And, I remember that was always a big thing. And I would walk around the neighborhood with Sandy and we would look at people's things that they had thrown out, and sometimes we'd find old toys and things. It was like kind of like a treasure hunting thing. It's a pretty big deal. So, wow, there's major construction up here. So, I got 15 minutes to get where I'm at. Strange that it's actually kind of difficult for me to think about this. It stirs up a lot of emotion. Weird. I can't hardly wait till I get to the good stuff. I mean, it's weird to delve back into this. Very strange. But, I mean, I'm seeing in full color these floods and everything in my sister's. So I'm gonna have a lot of editing to do to cut out all these. So if I left any in, I'm sorry. It's like I'm watching the video in my head. So we had the floods. Cindy, at some point, there was so much violence in my home at that time, you know. You've heard me say it before, and my mom's circle of friends and the guys in her life, they were all guys for the most part, were biker types. So these were big Hells Angels. Some of them were Hells Angels. One of the guys' names, they all had like gang names, just like gang members have gang names. Well, the Hells Angels all had, each person has a name too, a street name, a biker name. And I remember a guy named Terry the Turd. And, you know, these guys were all fucking my mom, no doubt about it. Why else would they be there? These were Hells Angels. But they were big guys, if you can just picture these big bikers, full of tattoos, and you know, their lives were Harley Davidson's, drugs, and fucking. And this is who was in my house. So at any time at all, you could, you know, you would have the house full of these guys. And now I'm growing up, now I'm going through the years here, and now I'm into my, like, let's say 5 or 6 years old. And it was not uncommon for me to get up in the morning, wake up and come out of my room, and there's some guy with a Harley Davidson in my house on the front, on the floor, that wheeled it in, and the guy's working on it. He's like, "Hey, little fucker, hand me that monkey wrench." You know, I mean, and for some reason I was terrified of these guys. They gave off a very bad vibe, and I always felt very scared for my safety. So I gave them a wide berth. And when I look back on it now as an adult, I think, my God, with those 3 girls in the house, who knows what happened to my sisters? Because you got a lot of guys that were not that high of moral character, and a single mom, you know, with 3 young girls. It terrifies me to think of what may have happened. It really does. But my mom was young and partying and living the high life and bringing guys home. She did have a boyfriend one time that was named Paul Goodrich. I believe he's dead of AIDS now. I actually went and saw him when I was a cop because my mom actually fell in love with that guy, and he was a lot younger. Strangely, I believe he was. I believe he was Cindy, my sister's boyfriend in high school. I think he was dating her. That's how young he was. And even if that's not him, but I think it is. That had happened before. My mom had, like, Cindy would have boyfriends and my mom would fuck them. I mean, that's just the reality. So, Paul Goodrich was like a stock car racer, and I remember he brought me an STP sticker, a big one that goes on the side of a car. Big one. And I was so excited. He always promised me, because he gave me an 8x10 picture of him next to a race car, that I loved that picture. I can still see it to this day. I can't remember the number on the car, but I can still see that car, and it was so it was like a real hero to me. And, you know, he had gotten kicked out of the Marines. It was during Vietnam, he got arrested, and I remember this, that he was in the Brig, which is the prison in the Marine Corps down in Camp Pendleton, San Diego. And my mom would go down on the weekends to visit him because he was in, I don't know what he did. I think he went AWOL, that's what it was. Yes, that's right. I was there when they arrested him. So, yeah. He left AWOL, absent without leave. He left the military without having, and just said, fuck it. So he was in prison for a while down there. But he never did give me this jacket, and I was always just waiting for this jacket, this race car jacket. Yeah. And, he was a young Marine guy, and drinking and fighting, and anyways, whatever. All good, Rich. So, where do I go here? So, there was that going on, and then in the middle of all this, there was my mom, who on a regular basis, and of course I don't remember what started it, but would just violently beat the crap out of my sisters. I mean, it was whoever was oldest always got the worst of it. That was sort of the way it worked. And so Cindy was really getting the worst of it. There was a lot of problems with Cindy and my mom. And I don't remember details other than the fact that she would run away from home a lot. That was a common thing. And at one point, she just never came back. And, I find out later, of course, she was in a foster home. She got arrested, and my mom, pretty much gave up on her. Or she gave up on my mom, depending on how you look at it. And her story's a terrible one. In foster home, she was, raped by the dads, the husband. It's just terrible stories. Molested, and now, as I make this video, she's living in poverty in the desert, or in the high desert of California. Little shithole. Sad. Not a happy person. So the next one that was left was Shelly, and Shelly, I have clear memories of Shelly being horribly beaten by my mother. I never knew why at the time. I mean, I know now. I talked to Shelly. There was a lot of, none of it was justified. I mean, Shelly would get beaten literally just for looking at my mom the wrong way. I came into the house one time after playing, and Shelly was unconscious on the front room floor, and my mom was sitting on the couch exhausted, just breathing real heavy. Like there had just been this major, ultimate fight. Fuck. Whoa. And, so I see Shelly laying there, and I run over to her. Shelly. My mom says, get away from her. And I was terrified of my mom, of course. Who wouldn't be? My mom was huge. And I don't mean, she was just a sturdy heifer. And she, get away from her. And I'm like, what happened? Get away from her. And, my mom had knocked her out. It was like a bar fight. You could see broken glass and shit. It was terrible. So there was a hole in the door shaped like Shelly's head, and, on the front door. My mom ramming it through there. I mean, when they fought, or when she got beaten, it was a real beating, not a spanking. My mom beat people. I mean closed fist. That was her MO. And weaponry. My mom always had weapons. When I was that age, I would get beat. At that stage in my life, for doing things, whatever the case was, my mom would hit me. She would spank me so hard she'd be arrested now. I mean, nowadays. Which I don't like the way that the rules are today, but she would beat me with Hot Wheel tracks, and you guys don't probably know what that is, but Hot Wheels were little cars, and the tracks were plastic, about this wide, but long, maybe foot-long orange strips. You could Google it, see what they are, but they were flexible plastic, and she would pull my pants down around my ankles. This is how I got spanked at that age, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'd lay over the bed. She'd lay me over the bed, and she would, oh wow, man, I can feel it. She would whip me right on my ass as hard as she possibly could. And I mean, you could hear this crack, man, and I'm talking until she got tired. I can feel it right now. And the crying and the screaming, and I remember she would pin my hands. I wish you could see she would pin my hands because what I was trying to do in the middle of it was slide my hand there on my butt to just take one or two of those hits on my hands to just get a little bit of relief, because I thought, like, it felt like I was going to puke or pass out. It was that brutal. And she would just, you know, cussing and screaming, but wailing and wailing and wailing, and you know, you would cry so hard that you couldn't cry anymore, that you were choking, and you were just, it was silent. I was silent, and all you heard was the Hot Wheel tracks just hitting me on the ass over and over, and you just thought it would never end. And I would get my hand back there a couple times, and it would hit my hand, and it really hurt my hand, but it was a moment of bliss to just relieve, because I couldn't take one more hit on the, she would hit the same spot. And if it wasn't a Hot Wheel track, it was also she would use a wooden coat hanger, and those, you know, anything that she could use. Hairbrushes were another one. You know, anything that was available. But oh God, she beat the shit out of me, man. And when she was done, you were left with horrendous purple and black and blue and welts and things that I would have arrested when I was a cop. I would have arrested somebody for doing that. It was brutal. You could not sit down. I mean, you couldn't sit down for a couple of days. You couldn't sit on your ass at all. No way. And so she never, in those days, never hit me in the face or anything. What the fuck am I in? Oh my God. No, I'm in a turn lane. I've gotten in the wrong lane. Let me see if I can get over without getting arrested. Oops, sorry. So, or am I in the wrong lane? I don't even know. This is what happens when you make videos while you drive. I get arrested now. But, that's how I was spanked. And you know, like for an example of a reason for getting spanked like that would be laughing at the dinner table. You know, we were not allowed to talk at the dinner table. That was a major rule. You couldn't talk at all. And you would usually start off with a shut up, you know, shut the fuck up, don't talk at the dinner table, you're not here to talk, eat your goddamn food, finish it. And if you would, like, one of the things Shelly got beat for endlessly was this. She would, I don't know what you call it, clicking, but when she did that, I've seen her get beat so bad that she almost had to go to the hospital for that. That would send my mom into a rage. I never did that. I never got hit for that. But I would get hit for, you know, when we were yelled at to shut up, maybe Sandy and I would look at each other and I'd start laughing. That was worthy of a beating to where I couldn't sit for a couple of days. You just didn't do that kind of thing. Let me pay attention here. It's so funny because I have no idea if this thing's even recording. I can't see that. I can't see the light because the camera's turned around. Anyway. I better get over it.
0.2 miles, turn left on Washington Boulevard.
So I'm getting close to my doctor appointment. I'm gonna, well, I'll try and end it, this part of it. So anyways, yeah, she would beat Shelly very badly. And Sandy had long red hair, and Sandy would get beat for all kinds of things. And my mom was a hair puller. She loved to pull the girls' hairs and swing them around. And you know, Sandy on 104th had I remember Sandy had a piano. My dad bought her a piano. We had that piano for years, and Dad paid for piano lessons. And she would study, you know, she really, I think she hated those piano lessons. But, you know, that's what they wanted her to do.
Turn left on Washington Boulevard.
Yeah, 104th. I'm going to shut it down now, and I'll pick it up on the way home maybe.